Hi, everybody. Today my t-shirt is Laugh, and this was the theme of the 2007 Vacation Bible School that I taught in the Northwest Territories. Well, I was thinking about laughing when I put this shirt on this morning, and I thought of a Bible verse from the book of Ecclesiastes. In chapter 3, there's a section that talks about there's a time to do one thing and then the other. It's kind of opposites. So in that it says there's a time to cry and a time to laugh. Now, I know a lot of you are feeling sad about the school events that you've missed. You're missing your friends, you're missing your sporting events. But in this time, we also can take some time to find some humor in things. Well, one day, a man and his wife were arguing about who should make the coffee in the morning. Oh, the woman said, "You should do it because you're the one who gets up first." And the man said, "No, you should do it because you are in charge of the cooking." So the wife then told him, "It says in the Bible that you should be the one to make the coffee." And he says, "Oh, really? You need to show me that." And she did, and she opened up her Bible, and it said, Hebrews. Well, there are some funny stories that we see in the Bible. Maybe they're not really laugh out loud jokes, but there are some kind of fun things to read. One happens in 1 Samuel. It's a story about Saul and the donkeys. The family donkeys get out and run away. So Saul's father says, "You need to go and find the donkeys." So Saul and a friend head out to find them. Well, after 3 days, they can't find these donkeys anywhere. And Saul finally says, "I think Dad's not going to be so worried about these donkeys anymore. He's going to be worried about where we are after 3 days." Well, along the way, they meet Samuel, and he tells Saul to forget about the donkeys because they've been found. Well, Saul figures he's just going to go home then. Why bother looking for something that's already found? Well, then he finds out he's to be the first king of Israel. So when Saul and his friend get home, his uncle of all people comes out and asks about these donkeys. And Saul says, "Oh yeah, they've been found." Kind of end of story. We don't really hear about the big part that Samuel had told him. Then there's a part called Samson's Riddle. Samson was that guy who had really long hair, and that's what he found his strength in. As long as he kept his hair long, he'd be really strong. Well, in Judges 14, he tells the men at a wedding feast that if they can answer the riddle that he gives them, he'll give them 30 undershirts and 30 really fancy shirts. And he says, if you can't answer this riddle, you have to give me 30 undershirts and 30 fancy shirts. So he tells them this riddle. He says, "Out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet." Now, before you try and figure out what this might mean, I'd like you to go and read Judges 14 for the answer. It's not really the kind of riddle that you could figure out on your own. There's another text. It comes up in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 21. It's one of those writings of Paul. And he says to them, "What would you prefer? Am I to come to you with a stick or with love and a spirit of gentleness?" It's kind of a funny thing to say. Would you rather come and have me hit you with a stick, or do you want me to come and show you love? Well, then Jesus even says something that's I always thought pretty funny. In Matthew 19, he's talking with his disciples and some others about how you can get into heaven. And he says, "Again, I tell you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of God." And he says that. I think he could have only said that with a smile. It's like, look, guys, it's ridiculous. You cannot go through the eye of a needle with a camel. Now, a lot of people try to explain this saying of Jesus. They say this eye of the needle was a really small door that the camel would have to kneel down to get through, or the camel they'd have to take all of the packages and everything off of the camel before it could get through. But what Jesus is really saying there is, listen to the joke, people. Nobody can get into heaven by themselves, just like that camel isn't going through the eye of the needle. And he says, nothing is impossible for God. So in this day, I want you to remember, nothing is impossible for God, and that we can find some humor in our days. So I hope you can find some humor today, even if it's to look up on the internet a nice joke, maybe better than my Hebrews joke. So I hope you can smile and maybe laugh today.